So it's 10:33. Shall I start? Does that sound like a good plan? Yeah, my name's Chris Hoyle. I'm the head of strings here, and you're all very welcome. And the first thing I'm required to do is read some formal text to you. So I'm just going to do that now. It says here that this session is going to be recorded for upload to the web for archive purposes. And so by joining this session, you're giving consent for the RNCM to record and store your participation. And the text in front of me says that if you're not comfortable with that for any reason, you simply turn your camera and your microphone off, and you're very welcome to do that. It's part of the way we live these days on Zoom, and some of the oddest meetings is when I'm actually speaking to a completely black screen, which is like addressing a black hole, but that's the way it is these days sometimes. So that's the formal bit done, and thanks for coming to come and check us out today. In a minute, I'll introduce you to some of my friends and colleagues and fellow students who are going to join us here today. And I was just wondering, what are the factors which will lead you to making your final decision to your choice of college for higher education for music study? And I appreciate that for each of you it will be a different thing that's going to attract you to wherever you finally go. It might be the teacher whom you learn with, and I know that that's a very important part of the deal, if you like. We're going to talk about that in a moment. For others, it could be the number of lessons that you have. We are known for having a particularly high number of lessons here. That might be something that attracts you. What's interesting is that for some people, they're quite swayed by the opinions of others, and rumour, to be honest, plays a big part in that decision. So it could be that in your youth orchestra, everyone's saying that such and such is the best place to go. I'm well aware that that happens. One of our violin teachers, she studied at Chetham's, and she said that when she was at the sixth form there, everyone, this was some 20 years ago, everyone was saying that such and such a college was the place to go. But she says now that in retrospect, nobody knew why it was the best place, but they just heard that that was what the word on the street was. So just to be aware of that. You could ask yourself whether the decision is your personal decision, or whether it's a family decision, or whether it's actually the decision of a teacher or a significant person steering you one way or another. For some, the lifestyle of where you are studying, the sort of city life and the feel of the college, the atmosphere there might play a big part. For others, it might be whether they can develop their second study, whether that's piano or singing or have some jazz input. One thing that attracts some people is the opportunities that are present at that college, which can lead you to your eventual employment. So how can we put you in touch with professional people and put you in professional playing environments? For others, chamber music is what interests them, and I'm happy to say that we can give you a very compelling answer on that one. And later we'll be inviting Donald Grant, he's the head of strings chamber music, to talk to you here. Anyway, there's lots of factors, aren't there? You know, it could be the money, the cost of living, the academic side of the course, whether you feel like you're going to leave here with a rounded education and a fuller understanding. So they're just some of the things, and we're going to try and talk about everything which I've just mentioned and more stuff too, to give you a full picture of where we're at. So let's just do some introductions. So first of all, let me introduce you to my colleague, the Deputy Head of the School of Strings, Catherine Yates. Do you want to say a few words, Kath?
Oh, of course, very happy to. Really nice that you could all join us today. And of course, the most important thing about any of these sessions that any of the colleges put on for you is that you get a chance to find out as much as you possibly can about the individual places and get those questions answered that you may have. Please don't worry if you think that any of the questions you may want to ask are silly or too obvious. Those are certainly the kind of questions that I love because I stand a fighting chance of answering them. So please don't hold back. If you wish to ask a question, you can use the chat facility here, or if you've got your camera on, just wave at us, or you could even use the waving hand symbol on here just to attract our attention, and we'll do our best to answer any questions that you may have. Absolutely. So please don't hold back.
Good. Thank you, Kath. Lily, do you want to say hi? Tell us where you are, what you're doing, and why we've invited you.
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone. I'm Lily. I left the RNCM last year now, so I've joined a very long list of alumni, and I just can't stay away. So I'm back for this. So yeah, any questions? I did 6 years at the RNCM, so I've got a lot of experience of being there. So yeah, feel free to ask anything.
That's great. And in due course, Lily, we'll ask you about, just to tell us a bit about your stories of the RNCM and what you're doing now and stuff like that. Should we start by talking to Cameron and Jess? Are you both here? I can see Jess. Can I see Cameron? Oh, there you are. Right. You're right underneath me there. So I wondered whether one at a time you'd like to introduce yourselves and just tell us all something about why you ended up coming to the RNCM, but about your musical life before that and how you're finding it here. And just for the others watching, you've been here now 5 weeks, 5-6 weeks, so you can describe some of your experiences, which no doubt are a little bit irregular, given the situation that we're living in, but I don't mind who speaks first.
I'll go first, I'm happy to.
Thanks, Cameron.
My name's Cameron, I'm from Leicester, and I have been playing the violin since the age of 7, I think it is. I started at my primary school. It was just one of those things, they would just try a musical instrument out, picked up the violin, and I just fell in love with it straight away, basically. And so I started having lessons at school all the way through till I was about 14, where I started getting taught privately. And then after 2 years of that, I auditioned for Cheatham's, which is where I studied for 6th form. And then I ended up here at RNCM. So that was my journey basically to the RNCM. In terms of first 5 or 6 weeks here, it's been great considering the current situation. It's really been a pain, but at the same time, all the staff have been great, trying to create as many opportunities as possible. A highlight of my weekly schedule is string orchestra with Kath and Chris, because you get a sense of normality. There's a sense of normality with everything because most stuff is online now, but going into the building and doing rehearsing with all the students brings back a sense of normality, and it's just great to be around people who love doing what I love doing, which is why I joined the RNCM.
Great. Thanks.
Cameron, may I ask you a quick question?
While
you're there?
Yeah.
So for you, having studied in Manchester already for 2 years,
Yeah.
what made you decide to stay here? Was it wanting to carry on with your current teacher, or was it like in the city and its musical life? I mean, was there one thing, or was it a combination of?
No, it was a combination of loads of things. Like, so the teacher who I've got now at RNCM, Ben Holland, he's fantastic. He taught me at Chet's for 2 years. Got on with him really well. I thought he was a great teacher, so I thought it would be great to carry on with him here at RNCM. And Manchester as a city as well, I just don't think you can beat it. It's just such a vibrant city. You around, it's just everyone's just always seems so happy. I don't know whether you think that or not, but when I'm walking around, it's got a good vibe about it, let's say. And also, I'm a massive Man United fan, so that always helps as well.
Thanks very much for that, Cameron. Yeah, they say it's a great city if you want the best of music and football. There's 5 Premier teams up here, aren't there? With United and City, and then Burnley, Oldham, and is it Bury? Can't remember, but yeah, it's big for football and big for music with the BBC Phil, the Halle, Manchester Camerata, Manchester Collective, and the orchestras nearby as well. So thanks for that, Cameron. Jess, over to you. Do you want to talk freely for a few minutes?
Yeah, that's fine. So I'm Jess. As Steve said just like a few minutes ago. So we've only been in RNCM for about 6 weeks. But my life was slightly different to Cameron's. I grew up in like the Sefton and the council's music service, which wasn't too good. And then did that up until I was about 14, and then I joined my local youth orchestra in Liverpool Philharmonic Youth Orchestra. And then it wasn't until then I kind of realised I actually wanted to do this as a profession. Then from like age 16, I then started to have like private lessons. Went through a load of different teachers. And then basically come to my auditions. I took 2 years out, so I left A-level, did a round of auditions. I didn't get into RNCM first, got into Royal Welsh. However, I really, really wanted to go to RNCM, so I basically switched teachers, worked for another year, and then got in the following year. But like in those 2 years, I taught, I gigged, build a good network around, so when I then come out of conservatoire, I've kind of got a good network and a kind of good basis in Liverpool, so I could get jobs easier and things like that. But never went to any junior schools, never went to any music schools, kind of grew up in like the public education. And then from then got into RNCM, and it's been really good. It's obviously not what we all expected, because in the summertime before I auditioned for the second time, I did the RNCM summer school, which was like 4 days, and you get to experience basically conservatoire life, which is really good. You get to meet Kath and Chris, kind of see what they expect of you technique wise, and kind of see how busy your day could be and conservatoire. So it was a really good eye opener for me, because I've never experienced anything like that before. And then it's usually RNCM is really super busy with just your schedule, but usually the atmosphere, especially in like the cafeteria and things like that, it's usually packed. But now it's obviously because of COVID, that's just not the way it is anymore. It's pretty silent when you walk in, there's nobody there. But it's not too bad. Things online, it's okay. Like you can get up, have your breakfast while you're watching a lecture. But yeah, it's like Cameron said, I think the staff especially, they're really, really trying to kind of keep things as normal as possible, like doing string ensembles, but still doing chamber ensembles. And the opportunities are still there, even though, you know, everything's kind of a bit more restricted than usual. But but yeah, it's been good. It's like Manchester it's very similar to, because I grew up in Liverpool, so it's very similar to Liverpool, but it's just a bit bigger. But I know a few of my flatmates who I live with, they've come from like small villages in Scotland and things like that. So they've found going from a small village to like a bigger city was quite difficult for them. But as long as you get to know on Manchester, and as long as you realise that there's only 4 parts of Manchester, and then explore them, you're fine. But yeah, if there's like any of the questions, I don't mind answering any.
Thanks for that, Jess. That's really brilliant. When we were planning this term some months ago, what we decided was, what we asked ourselves was, which activities can't you do online? And we made those the priority for activities in the building. So for example, you can't play chamber music online on Zoom, I mean, in a meaningful way, really. So we've made that the top priority for stuff that happens in the building. And also these string ensembles. In the School of Strings at the moment, we've actually got 11 string ensembles. And again, they were the priority for work in the building. Other things like meetings like this, like we're doing today, can happen online. It's a shame we can't show you around the building. We'd love to do that and you know, show you the studios and the concert hall and the cafeteria and the bars and the restaurants, but anyway, you have to take our word for that they're quite nice, and people they like the communal areas, the canteen and the bar area, because everybody hangs out there at the end of the day. There's a really nice social buzz there, but for now you'll have to take our word for that. What I'll do now, I'll just talk to you for a moment about the teachers here and how students get placed with a teacher. What I'm going to do is anticipate your questions, and we'll talk for a while, and then a bit later we'll look on the chat section and you can post some questions there. So your audition is heard and monitored by 2 members of staff who each write an independent set of notes about your playing. And we look at your style and your temperament, and what we're trying to work out is what your particular needs are, where you need to grow. And we're in the position, me, Catherine Yates and the other panelists, of knowing all our teachers, and we know their teaching styles, we know that their likes and dislikes, and what you might say are their areas of expertise, if you like, or speciality. And with that knowledge, we line you up, or we encourage you towards, let's say, 2 teachers who we think might meet your needs very well. But at the same time, it's the start of a discussion. So when you audition here, we'll be asking you which teachers have caught your eye, what type of teaching you would like, and you join this discussion with us. And as we're talking, we'll work out 1 or 2 teachers who you think it's worth having a consultation lesson with. So you have these consultation lessons, and at the end of this process, you make a decision as to which teacher you're going to learn with. So I think it's very important for us to say that we're not here to force you to learn with a certain teacher, but it's absolutely a dialogue. And it's a process which is driven by us wanting to find the teacher who's going to meet your needs best. In fact, some applicants, they want very little to do with the process. They say to us, we trust you, we understand that you know the teachers, so you can just place me with whichever teacher you like. But other applicants, you know, they want to have lessons with 2, maybe 3 teachers and check them out, and that's fine too. But I think it's worth you knowing how that process works, because it is one of the really central parts of your experience here. And as I said earlier, you have a generous number of lessons here. This year it's 38 hours of contact with your teacher. So if you're making notes, you know, you're welcome to write that down. And your time with your teacher is made up of your one-to-one lessons with them, and also group classes with your teacher. So once every week or 2, you will play to your teacher and to the other students whom your teacher works with in a little class setting. And that's one of the first ways you get used to performing, standing up and testing your repertoire. It's a very productive way of teaching as well, because however many people are in the class, 3, 4, 5 or 6, they all get to benefit from watching you being taught as well. So would anybody else like to come in on that one, talk about teacher class experiences? Kath, over to you.
I'd just like to say that the number that Chris has just mentioned, 38, is for undergraduate students, and if we've got any people here who are considering the RNCM for postgraduate study this year, it's 33 hours if you're writing the numbers down, and of course the same class performance and opportunity. And I have to say, speaking personally, it's one of the highlights of my week when we have class. We had it last night with all of us there, and we had 5 people playing different kinds of, and it's fantastic. I think one of the best things about it, aside from, you know, students getting really comfortable in their own skin on stage, is actually hearing their own thoughts on their colleagues playing. And it's wonderful to see your own students becoming really insightful teachers right in front of your very eyes every week. It's a really valuable part of how we do things here. So there you go.
Lily, don't mean to put you on the spot. Do you want to say anything? Did you enjoy working in class situations?
Yeah, I remember my first class still when I was back in first year, and it was the scariest thing I've ever done in my life, like hands down. And I remember standing, because I was the youngest in the class because it was first year, and I was so scared, but they were so supportive and so lovely. And then you really get to know the other people in your class as well. So you've got like this little support network within the college of all people that learn with your teacher, which is really lovely. And I know that if we had auditions coming up or something, we'd play excerpts to each other in our free time, and always like go to each other for help if we needed extra stuff, which was really lovely. And yeah, it's scary to start with, but it gets easier, and it's just really it's a really insightful way to learn how you're going to deal with pressure and nerves as well, without it being a pressured situation, which is really good.
Great. Thanks, Lily. In addition to the work with your teacher, we also put on masterclasses. So let me just speak about the violinists just for a moment. So this term, they'll have a masterclass with Cecily Ward. She's going to talk about classical repertoire, actually solo Bach she's going to talk about. Of course, we hope that all violinists will come and watch and learn from that. And James Clark, you might know him, he's going to do a masterclass on Mozart violin concertos. And I think what's interesting about these masterclasses is that whether you're playing in them or not, this is repertoire that everyone needs to know. Everyone needs to know their solo Bach, and everyone needs to know their Mozart concertos. So they're there for all violinists to watch and benefit from as well. We also, actually, Kath, do you want to talk a little bit about Baroque lessons? They're
Absolutely. We've got a team of visiting Baroque specialists who come in from time to time, and these lessons are available to any student who wishes to sign up for them. And these are with people who are the top of their field in the Baroque world. And we see it as a really important part of the broad education that, and you know, what's necessary for us to have as wider perspective and knowledge as we can possibly have. They do visit from time to time, and what's I think important for you to know is that you can work on any of your Baroque repertoire on a modern instrument with these specialists, but we also have an extensive collection of Baroque instruments owned by the college, which are also available to be borrowed as well. So you've got two possible routes there to go down, whether it's learning really well-informed style, etc. on your modern instrument, or whether it's in an authentic manner, as they say. Yeah, it's a I suppose it's an example of an add-on that we think is an important thing for you in your broadness of viewpoint.
Yeah, funny enough, by chance, just before this meeting started, I bumped into one of my former students. She's called Lily, actually, and this week she will have had her cello lesson and then a cello class. And then she had lessons with a cellist called Jonathan Manson, who's the Baroque cello teacher. The person before her actually cancelled on the day, the student before her. So she actually had 2 hours of extra lessons on Baroque repertoire with this person. And right now she's taking part in an internal cello competition here. That's a solo Bach prize. So she's competing downstairs. So that's just to give a quick snapshot of one cellist and what they're up to this week. So there's a lot on offer for people who are on the lookout for it, and people who like signing up for stuff. Kath, do you know what time Donald might be coming to this meeting?
Don't know what time Donald is coming to this meeting is the straight answer. There's a chamber music meeting, I think, later on this afternoon. He'll definitely be at that, so not sure. Sorry about that. Maybe Molly knows. Molly, do you know?
Okay.
No. Okay, we failed. But you'll certainly be able to meet Donald this afternoon, which is important because he's a lovely man and he'll tell you an awful lot about chamber music.
We can tell you a bit for now, though. Jess or Cameron, have you been doing some chamber music yet? Are you being put in groups at the moment? How's that working?
Yeah, we've all been put into groups about 2 weeks ago now, and then obviously it's been a bit difficult. It's been a bit of a delay with it because obviously people are in isolation and things like that. People are not living in college, but I've been put in a trio, 2 violin and double bass, which is quite is another something I've never actually been in before. Yeah, it's different, but that's why I come to RNCM, to experience all different things that I've never done before. But yeah, we had our first coaching last week, and we were all quite nervous because one, we'd never met each other, never played together, never played repertoire like that before. And we had ours with Donald, and he was brilliant. There's like no qualms or anything. We just played. He just basically, we were doing Corelli trio sonatas. So he was just basically, he's like went straight into teaching. Just made it. It was just a nice rehearsal, really. There was no judgment, no nothing like that. Which is a thing that we're all quite, especially first years, the fact of being judged and is quite hard. It can create a lot of anxiety behind it all. But no, it was like judgmental, judge free, basically. It was lovely. It was really good.
Great, thanks for that. Yeah, Cameron, are you in a group? Is that being sorted at the
I
moment?
am, yeah. I'm in a piano trio, which we've been in. Like Jess said, that was sorted a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
We had our first lesson last Thursday, I think it was. Luckily, I already knew the pianist because he went to Chet's with me. But like Jess said, yeah, it's really great. You do worry about being judged, but everyone's just really supportive, really nice, and I'm in a great piano trio. We all get along really well, and it's worked really well, I think, especially because of the current situation. We can rehearse, but it has to be at a distance, obviously. But like I said, it's working fantastically, and we're moving at a really good pace as well. I think we're cracking on with the Dvorak Dumke trio, which is a fantastic piece, and yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far. Yeah.
Good. Thanks for that. So I'll just tell you now, we'll just move on. I'll just tell you a few more stats for those who are making notes. One thing that attracts some people to studying here is the available time that you have for working. And one reason for that is because where you live is likely to be really near here. If you choose to live in the halls of residence, they're just across the car park. So if it takes you more than 1 minute to get here, you've gone badly wrong. It can save you basically hundreds of hours a year and a significant amount of money. Just the fact that you can walk here in next to no time, just across the car park. And some people like the sort of secure feeling of knowing that when you get to the end of a day, let's suppose you've done an evening concert, you're not then obliged to cross the city or go on a big excursion across town to where you live. But as I say, you can just walk out the door and it's 1 minute to where you live. So that means a lot to some people. Perhaps it means more to parents than to you yourself. They like to know that, you know, that you're not out walking across the city at 10:30 at night carrying your violin or whatever. The other thing, another thing that's of interest to some people is the cost of living here. Manchester is a cheap city to live, relatively speaking. I read an article recently, it said that there's actually 99,000 students in Manchester. I've read contradictory articles, somewhere it says 77,000, but either way, that's a lot of students. I've a feeling it's got the biggest student population in Europe, and it's well set up for student needs and student budgets as well. So to my left, there's a Manchester Metropolitan University, and to my right, there's the Manchester University. So on this corridor of Oxford Road, there's a lot of student life going on here. So yeah, it's cheap, and some people say it's about £3,500 to £4,000 a year cheaper in Manchester than living in the capital. Over the course of a 4-year course here, you might save £16,000. And depending on how rich you are, you might think that £16,000 is money you'd rather not spend on rent and travel, and you could spend that differently on fresh vegetables and concert tickets and lifestyle, just having time and well-being. So yeah, basically you could save about £15,000 or £16,000 by living in Manchester. So that's an interesting statistic to take with you. So let's think. Kath, do you want to talk for a minute? Is there a burning issue you'd like to share, or would you like to talk to us about your what you wanted to share about harmony?
Well, yeah, I thought at this point in time when many of you will be preparing for auditions this particular cycle, or maybe thinking about even for next year, and you're required to play certain things, aren't you? You'll look through all the audition requirements of the various colleges and see what everyone's wanting to hear. And one thing that does crop up a lot for all disciplines is classical repertoire. And I find it really interesting because so often I hear myself when I'm listening to entrance auditions, or in my former life as principal second violin in the Halle Orchestra, when we were auditioning for players there, classical repertoire often is the thing that people didn't seem to be terribly comfortable with, almost like they're wearing the wrong clothes and can't quite find who they are within it. And I just thought I might spend 5 minutes, if you didn't mind, just airing that subject really, and you know, hopefully get you maybe touching in with the subject of confidence in the characterisation and personality and communication of what you're trying to do with your classical repertoire at this particular point in time. So I thought I might just take a few short examples, if you like, just to get maybe you thinking about things. Maybe you think about this already, I don't know, but I think what I'd love to just get us thinking about is how we can use the evidence that we see on the page in front of us to give us confidence, if you like, in our own instincts, and to feel that, yes, okay, we need to be aware of classical style, but not to be constrained by it. I mean, if we think about classical architecture, when one looks at classical architecture, it's so perfect, it's symmetrical, it's formal. If you think about classical costume, oh, so restraining, with high collars and ties and corsets and wigs and all of that. I mean, it's not designed for easy, relaxed and easy movement, apart from anything else. But I think it's really important for us to remember that the people of the time had all the same feelings, emotions that we have today. They're just dressed up in a different parcel, and social convention at the time was, of course, much more formal than it is now. So I think we need to be really trying to connect in with finding means of characterizing and finding personality in what we're playing in terms of our classical repertoire. So I was just going to talk very briefly about two particular subjects, which are very, very much linked together, to try and just open up this subject really. And it's about harmony and orchestration, texture. And of course we're spending, and it's been particularly resonating this year, that we do spend an awful lot of time practicing the repertoire that we're learning totally on our own. You know, none of us have the luxury of, I don't know, the English Chamber Orchestra in the cupboard that we can bring out to rehearse with. And so I think the first thing to think about is having one of these to hand, the actual score of. Now this came off IMSLP, I won't lie, didn't buy it. Brilliant resource. So yes, you probably have your piano reduction somewhere. Useful in itself, of course it is, but having this to hand so you can look at things like, you know, for example, I've got here Mozart's Fourth Violin Concerto in D, that old friend, and I can see immediately it's got two oboes, two horns. That sets a mood immediately, and of course D major being the key of one of the keys of horns at the time. So to have an actual orchestral score that you can refer to is just so useful. Oops, sorry, that was my phone falling on the piano. Do forgive me. And then, of course, you'd have your piano part to hand. I've got one here. And before this session, I just spent a couple of minutes just sort of annotating just a few things on the piano part here to remind myself of what I mustn't forget, and what I need to be feeding off and using to formulate my thoughts about what this piece might be like, what evidence I can use here in order to help me feel confident in my own feelings on this particular piece of repertoire. Now, of course, everyone has different feelings and reactions to music, so this is very much my take on this, but I would just encourage you to find your own take on whatever repertoire you're playing. So what I'm going to do is just going to talk through some of these things that I've noticed and what they might make me think about. So for example, in this particular piece, if you don't know the piece, I don't think it particularly matters, but it starts very brightly at the beginning. It's completely unison. You can see on the score there, total unison, orchestra playing this figure. Forgive me, I'm not a pianist. So immediately we're into fanfare, D major, energetic, forthright opening material. And of course, with every classical concerto, you'll then get little snippets of what's to come. So we move through there, and then just to welcome the violinist again, we finish very brightly with full orchestra here. And again, that slightly, arguably fanfare or military figure at the end of the section, which is immediately picked up by the violin. So then, things to notice. For example, violin enters, high, no bass in the orchestra. What's that? What's that for? Well, I would be thinking, oh, it's sort of highlighting the brilliance of the writing, so of the solo, and it's giving a feeling of brilliance, but also lightness there. So the violin comes in high, and the orchestra is just the violins with it. It's got a positive energy to it. And then from the fourth bar of the orchestra, of the solo part here, the bass enters, as do the horns. So we can then get a bass line, which is doing this, and we've got two horns doing a very long note. So I'm thinking, well, what does that mean? What does that mean to me? Well, that's gives a sense of continuity, gives a feeling of long line. So I'll be thinking, okay, I've got to make sure, having been very upright and fanfare in my initial opening 3 or 4 bars, now I've got to find a nice linear vision here. Then 4 bars later, oh, okay, the bass drops out here, the violas become the bass, and we get, this is the accompaniment. Just 2 bars. 2 little phraselets there, and I'd be thinking, well, okay, we've lost the bass. What does that do? That maybe gives a feeling of intimacy here. Maybe don't need to be so strong in dynamically and in sound. And we've got 2 distinct flavours of harmony here. This little bit of maybe sad face, little tinge of minor there. Then he puts the bass in, which becomes a positive, for me, positive driving force to come out of maybe little private whisperings, 2 little people talking together into something that then is brighter, more positive, which drives the music forward into the first cadence that the section has here. And interestingly, again, things to think about is when he stops the orchestra entirely. It's a reason to give space. So, for example, here, this is coming into the cadence, he stops the orchestra, which gives the violinist an opportunity to be flamboyant and really spacious in how they set up the cadence there. So just moving on, we have a tiny little touchy at this point. And then we come into our second theme here. I'll just show you on our piano part what happens here. It's, again, tiny detail. This is strings here. And here, this is actually wind contrary motion, which to me would be saying, oh, I've got to think about my phrasing here. I've got to give myself enough energy on the bar line that a whole load of players can come in strongly and lighten as they spread out to show that texture there. And then we get some lovely harmony. So far, we've had 1 tinge of minor so far. That was tiny, tiny. But we're coming to a section where we're still in D, and then we get this, the wind and the horns enter. So there's a sense for me of bigger scale, more drama. So I'd be thinking in operatic terms, what's happening maybe in the plot here? What am I anguished about? What's going on in my potential narrative here? And again, let's think about the harmony. We've got tension here, and well, I was going to say land, but I think that's actually the wrong word, because we have an E minor chord, but we've got the third in the bass, which gives it a feeling of ooh, as opposed to rooting itself and feeling sort of ultra positive, if you like. So it's suggestive. It's suggesting ooh, possibilities here. A little bit of dialogue between the soloist and the violin. So it's all a little bit uncertain, and then we get the nice cadence, and then unison tutti, A major, really flamboyant theme to come. So, you know, of course, you're not hearing the violin part, and I hope I'm giving a clear enough case that in a sense you don't need to at this point, but what would be brilliant is if you're thinking along these lines, looking at what the harmony's doing, what the text is doing, and what it makes you feel like. So it's like giving yourself confidence in your own instincts here. So I've just got a couple more things to say. So we've now made it really basically to the second subject. So now in A major, and we get the orchestra part has forte, piano, and then forte, which again gives us a good feeling in the solo line phrasing. You'd be thinking, oh, we've got some grounding here, so this may be where I've got this is the writing in the violin part, so it's strong and then rebound. So then again, that will help me think about how I would want to shape this, how I'd be using the bow, and also to feel the second bar here. He doesn't root the harmony. So I think it's so important we know this. He doesn't do that. He does, which again has a feeling of expectation. It's not heavy. It's not grounded, even though it's positive. And again, that makes a difference. 2 bars later, no bass at all. So there's an air of searching. This is the accompaniment. Another surprise moment tonally there. So yeah, let's really be thinking about how you can use the detail in not just I suppose it's not just the harmony, it's not just the texture, it's everything together, and how that makes you feel. And you know, all of us, when we're preparing for any kind of concert performance or recording or audition, we want to feel comfortable in our own skin in every respect, don't we, when we go on stage? And to feel that you can inhabit a personality in your classical repertoire as strongly as you might instinctively feel more confident in another kind of repertoire, it will be something I think could be really valuable. So let's never forget that the orchestra is there to be a really big guide and help to us as we're preparing in isolation. And you know, even hearing and imagining what, you know, 2 oboes coming in, giving us an air of brightness or anticipation, or horns giving a warmth, that makes it feel different. And to know that that's there is, I think, a really important thing. So yeah, that's it from me for now. But love your harmony. Oh, so good. So there you go. Bit of a harmony fan, I have to say.
Brilliant. Oh, thanks for that, Kath. So there's so much more to playing Mozart than fingerings and bowings. Yeah, we're quite keen that people become complete musicians, and that you know, we interpret pieces of music from a variety of standpoints, and one of which Kath is saying is from the point of view of the harmony, and that tells a massive story in terms of how we can interpret that piece of music. So I'm wondering whether now to introduce you to someone who joined us a few minutes ago. Buongiorno, Elena. And Elena is now a second-year student. Do you want to tell us, Elena, just introduce yourself and tell us something about your year here? And since people can't visit the building right now, maybe you could tell them something about the facilities and the atmosphere and your experience here.
Hi, yes, of course. So I'm Elena. I'm a second-year violin student from Italy. I mean, one of the reasons I chose the RNCM was, sorry about the lighting, I don't know what's going on, but we'll just keep talking. One of the reasons I chose the RNCM was, you know, as Chris mentioned, the atmosphere. Like even when I went to audition, it felt very welcoming and supportive, which is something I didn't find in the other places I auditioned. And when I then came to study here last year, I mean, it was even more welcoming than I expected. I mean, the staff is incredibly supportive. I was very surprised because where I used to study in Rome, it was completely different. Like the staff weren't really invested in you as a person. You were just kind of, you know, a student. Whereas here it feels like they care about you as an individual musician, which is great. It's a great feeling to know that you have that support. And not just, you know, principal study, but also things like theory and musicianship and, you know, with Kath and Chris and orchestra. And with chamber music as well. The thing is with chamber music, you have many tutors. You can choose, well, not now because of COVID, but last year you could choose who to sign up with. And you get like a coaching session with whoever you choose to sign up with. And the input that you receive from each musician is extremely valuable, and you know, you're always learning, and it's great, honestly. When it comes to the building, well, I mean, it's quite sad now because knowing how it was last year, it was again really like inclusive and welcoming. Like you just walk into the building and you walk into the cafeteria and all the students are there, and you know, teachers are there too, and you can talk and, you know, talk about anything with whoever you want. And the facilities are great. I mean, you can, I don't know if you mentioned booking practice rooms, but you can book practice rooms through a website, I think, called Azimuth. And yeah, there's lots of practice room. You just like book your slot and then you decide when to go. The concert hall and the recital hall are also great. I mean, I loved all the rehearsals we had with orchestra and, you know, with the orchestra in the concert hall last year, and in the Carol Nash now, which is still a great room. What else about the facilities? I'm not really sure. It's mainly those, and then you have like the rooms where the chamber music rooms, of course. So the third floor is dedicated to the chamber music rooms, where you just either book chamber music like rehearsals, or you have your coachings there. So it's kind of designated spaces for wherever you want to go. But yeah, like in all honesty, I'm just like, even if it's not like it was last year, right now, I still feel extremely lucky to be able to go in the building and play with people and actually see real people and connect with them. And, you know, when the whole pandemic started, I thought that wasn't going to be possible for a very long time, but I'm glad that everyone in the building is working to help the students and support the students. Especially now, there's so much support and so much attention. And, you know, it's something I'm really grateful for, and it's just a great atmosphere to work in and study in.
Eleanor, that's brilliant. Thank you. If you're happy to hang around for a bit, then when we take questions in a while, maybe you'd like to answer some. I think it's sometimes better if students, Cameron, Jess, Eleanor, are answering questions than if we do. I don't know whether you'd rather hear from them than from us. But for now, should we, Lily, do you want to talk to us for a bit? By the way, I should say, I really like the view out of your window. Are you in Manchester today?
Yes, I am in Manchester today. It's a bit nicer than yesterday.
It's really nice.
But yes. Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Do you want to just talk to us about a few memories from the RNCM and anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, so one thing I was thinking about when we were talking about chamber music, actually, in particular, was one of the things I found amazing at the RNCM is that you really can sign up for as much chamber music coaching as you would like. There really is no limit. If you want to, you could. We had in my first year, I went a bit chamber music mad, and I think I had coaching every single week for a long period. It's you just sign up, and there's always slots, there's always new staff coming in to give lessons, so it really is as much as you want, which is amazing. I think that was one of the things I loved a lot about the RNCM. And also I'm very into orchestral playing, so I got very, very involved in all the orchestras at college, and I did all the professional experience schemes that you can do from third year. So I don't know if there's any postgrads, but from postgrads can apply for the professional experience schemes with different orchestras, and years 3 and 4 can as well. And they basically mean that you can go and audition to play with, I think for the strings, is it the BBC Phil and Manchester Camerata at the moment? Are they the only two? Yeah, they're the two at the moment. So I was so lucky that I did them in my 3rd and 4th year. And they're a really, really valuable thing about the college, because it gives you a real step into the orchestral world in Manchester, and you get to know all the players in various orchestras, and it's really, really invaluable. I mean, I now work at the BBC Philharmonic. I'm a second violinist there, so it really was a stepping stone for me to get to my current job. So I think that's amazing about the RNCM, and I absolutely loved it. And now I think as well, which is even cooler, is that the BBC Phil, they're actually giving like Zoom workshops and stuff to all applicants, not just those that have actually got a place on the scheme. I think that's right at the moment. So that's really cool as well. And yeah, that was one of my favourite things actually about college, was all the orchestra playing. There was loads of like the Chamber Orchestra of Europe came in, some members from them to do some projects with us. The Marlow Chamber Orchestra came in to do some projects with us. There was side-by-side projects with the BBC Phil and the Halle and Manchester Camerata, and there's just all these orchestra musicians that come in all the time, and you can learn so much from them. And with like sectionals, you always get the leaders from all the orchestras coming in, you get to know them, get to meet them. It's a really amazing opportunity, I think, especially in Manchester, because there's so many orchestras in such a small space. So yeah, that was my kind of big thing I took away.
Thanks, Lily.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lily. That's great. So before we go any further, would you guys like to ask any questions? You can either do that by raising your hand like that, or you can start typing in the chat function. And between us, we'll try and help you with your questions, if you have any.
And whilst you're thinking about your questions, I'll just follow on briefly from what Lily was just saying, that you'll have gleaned from what she said that we think it's a really important thing that students get to play alongside, up close. I shouldn't say that at the moment clearly, but with professional players as one of the best ways to learn. So we are super keen on having our staff and our students and visiting professional musicians playing together as often as we can possibly manage it. I mean, examples might be towards the end of last year for the Chamber Music Festival, there was well, there are always staff and student performances in there, but there was a lovely Appalachian Spring performance that with 7 of the 13 musicians were students. We had, I don't know whether any of you have heard of the wonderful Chinese violinist Ning Feng. He's one of our international visitors, and he comes periodically. He's got an amazing international career as a soloist and chamber musician, but he came and played some quartets with some of our students last time. He was visiting. Amazing experience for them. And when you potentially meet Donald this afternoon at the chamber music meeting, he is of course of the Elias Quartet. They come regularly and will work on sextets and Mendelssohn Octet, for example, with students to really get most out of that real sort of live and incredibly productive time there. And there've been so many occasions when we've had visitors coming in. I remember there's a couple of years ago, Sophia Jaffe, don't know whether you were involved in that, Lily, was playing concertos with the Hoyle, and they were doing a run of 4 or 5 concerts, and there was a free day on the Saturday, and she just emailed and says, well, would anyone like to play some chamber music? Well, okay. So we organised a load of students to play Mendelssohn Octet with her for an afternoon, which was amazing, and it's something that we feel is really, really important. So you'll see it a lot. And at the moment, with our 11 string ensembles that Chris has been mentioning, Chris is conducting some, but the rest are all being directed by our staff or visiting professional musicians, which just puts a different spin on it, really. And we see it as being a very important thing, a big part of what we do.
Yeah, thanks for that, Kath. Thank you. There's just a question about masterclasses. The answer is masterclasses are absolutely open to all instrumentalists. In fact, if you're a string player, you can go and watch piano masterclasses, wind masterclasses. I'm quite keen encouraging our string players to attend singing events, and some of that happened last year. There are lots of people who think that whether you're actually playing or not, it's as valuable, if not more valuable, to sit and observe masterclasses, because obviously, typically there will only be 3 or 4 people playing, but those who aren't playing have got the sort of objectivity to sit back and listen to the teaching in an unheated sort of manner. I'm impressed that nowadays I'm seeing more and more students turning up to these events with notebooks and making notes as the teacher teaches the students. And I've learned a tremendous amount, because one thing I do in my role is I attend masterclasses across the school. So as a cellist, I've learned a lot from all the other events that we do here, including a percussion event which we put on a couple of weeks ago about counting and rhythm and grooves and stuff like that. I learned some really valuable stuff from that. And with relation to double basses in particular, yes, they have their fair share of masterclasses. The most recent was Bojo Parajic, who you've probably heard of. And along the lines of what Kath said, with double basses, these days in our orchestral projects, we're planting a professional double bass player in the middle of the double bass section. And for that period of days, the students, they work with that person in the orchestra in double bass sectionals and have masterclasses as well. So it's interesting and a new way of doing things. We put principal bass of, Kath, can you remind me, is it the Südwestdeutsche, no, the Bayerische Rundfunk Orchestra?
Yes.
Yeah,
Bayreuth, yeah.
Yeah, we put him in the middle of the double bass section, just to give you one example. Do you want me to take that question about second study instruments? I'd be very happy to do that one.
Can I just mention something, Chris, about the master classes? I think, I'm not sure if this is what you call it, but you have like an open classroom policy or something like that, as in students from, I mean, you can basically attend any class you want, even if you're not actually part of the class. So I could go listen, yes, to my teacher teach another of her students, but also to a piano teacher, and anything you want. So that's also a great opportunity to learn and just take all the information that you want to take, because you honestly don't just have to ask the teacher and, you know, go into the classroom and listen.
Good, yeah, thanks for that, Eleanor. In fact, some of our students spend as much time working with composers as they do with their violin and viola cello teachers. So yeah, you can certainly diversify, which leads on brilliantly to the subject of second study. There are a number of piano second study teachers here, and there's a set rate for those, isn't there, Kath? Is it £15, I think?
It's subsidised, so it's should we say not too prohibitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's 17. I get piano lessons.
Ah, thanks, Jess.
Yeah, £17 for half an hour.
Yeah. And it's the only thing in college which you pay extra for. For example, Jess, if you wanted to do the viola, there you could sign up for violin for violas and have some contact time with that. I had a student who talked to me about her interest in singing, and I see that someone wanted to ask about that. And in her first week here, I introduced her to the teachers from the vocal department. And so she attended the vocal masterclasses. She sang in a choir. She had some singing lessons as well. And interestingly, she was into her folk music as well. And soon she found her connections there. So in addition to her life as a cellist, she was also a singer and a folk musician. We absolutely encourage people to make those sort of connections. We'll support them in that. And
if I may just ask Laura, who asked the question about having choir and things, are you postgrad or undergraduate? Cool, because in normal times there is the RNCM Symphony Chorus, which is all undergraduate first year singers, well, instrumentalists and singers who will work together, but also there is again in normal times the RNCM Chamber Choir, which any instrumentalist can audition for, which is also a big part of the singing life of the college.
Yeah, we also do lots of new music as well. So if a student, for example, Hannah said to us, I'm interested in this type of thing, we would certainly make a note of that and get you to talk to the orchestral team, so that when there are, they're called brand new projects, that's where we play first performances. And there's actually quite a lot of new music projects in college with visiting composers. So we would note your interest and put you as far as we can in those sorts of opportunities. And again, you could mix with the composers as much as with the string players, and I'm sure they'd like to work with you as well. So yeah, you could definitely get stuck into your contemporary music. So I think we're all right there on questions for now. I'll just do a little talk for a few minutes, just following on from what Kath was saying about our collaborations with different artistic groups and different orchestras. And Lily, you'll remember this, that one thing that struck me, I read an article where a famous string player was asked to give a piece of advice to young musicians, to students setting out. That advice was always try and play chamber music with people who are better than you. And I think it's a really inspiring example. And of course, like mathematically, it's impossible to always play chamber music with people who are better than you, but you can understand why that's a good aspiration, and the type of learning that can happen when you're surrounded by people at a higher level than you. Do you remember the word osmosis from your biology lessons? And is it called osmotic flow, which is the transfer of molecules through a permeable membrane? Well, I like to think that in some way there's a sort of transfer of artistic standards that you can take on in a subconscious way. So you can pick up musical and technical things from having more mature and more advanced players sitting around you. It's a really amazing way of learning. And even, Lily, I don't know how you're finding it in the BBC field, just the fact that most weeks there's a visiting soloist, and you know, you're getting used to hearing these amazing string players come and performing their concertos with the orchestra. Maybe not so much in this period that we're in now, but you can learn so much from hearing them. Do you want to?
Yeah, if I can say, yes, absolutely. And I actually remember you saying that to me about playing chamber music with people that are better than you when I was in my first year. I remember it really clearly, so that's lovely. But yeah, I think listening to all the other people rehearsing and playing is really important. And in normal times, there are so many concerts in Manchester all the time. You can see a different violinist, cellist, viola player, whatever, all the time playing with all these orchestras. And I've been to some amazing concerts here over the past, gosh, I don't know how many years I've lived here now, like 7 years or something. But it's amazing the amount of people that you can see play, especially, I have to say, the Strings Weekend that happens in January every year is one of the most exciting weekends of the year for me, because I think you can hear everyone comes, like there's the most amazing players come all in one weekend, and you get to experience this. It's the whole like atmosphere of the college changes. There's like a buzz that happens when there's all these amazing people all in the refectory, in the cafe area. And I remember it's just amazing. So yeah, listening to other people playing, I think, is really, really a really valuable way to learn. And also, like Kath said, with the playing chamber music with staff and visiting professors, it's another great way of learning, because you not only do you get to hear how they would play the chamber music, but you also get to hear how they would rehearse it, which you can then take away to your own chamber music groups and your own practice and adapt your ways of learning because of it. So it's really cool. So yeah, go to all the concerts when they're back on, hopefully.
Yeah, thanks for that, Lily. And for now, of course, you know, do make the most of online let me just admit this person here. Do make the most of online concerts and live stream events, and listen to lots of recordings of your pieces, so that you're sort of planting fine examples of artistry in your mind. And I'd make a habit of listening to various recordings of your piece if you're going to do that, so that you don't by mistake end up cloning one. You know, I was guilty of that at a certain time of my life, because I was a big fan of Yo-Yo Ma, let's say, you know, and I did begin to sound more like I was trying to be him than I was trying to be me. So do listen widely to a range of styles and artists. But yeah, thanks for talking about the Strings Festival, Lily. This year, coming in January, if all goes well, we've got Ning Feng coming to play. He was going to do the Walton Violin Concerto, but then we went for a smaller orchestra, so now we went for the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto because there's less winds. We don't know, at this rate it might be even smaller than that as well, but we'll see. And then there's a cellist called Jean-Guyen Carras, who's a French-Canadian cellist who is going to come, and a viola player called Lise Berthaud, a French soloist and chamber musician. And So whatever happens in January in the Strings Festival, these great artists will be sitting shoulder to shoulder with our students and making music with them, whether it's small scale or medium scale. We'll see what we can do. Now, I'm conscious that Rachel has just connected with us. So, Kath, can I ask you to introduce Rachel and just to compare this little section here?
Absolutely. We were very, very conscious this morning that there's an awful lot of talking. And it might actually be quite nice to hear some music. And ordinarily on a live open day, we'd have various live music events happening in the college and masterclass, sort of mini masterclass things and all of that kind of thing. So we thought we'd get a lovely student along to play some music for you. So we have second year violin student Rachel here, who's going to play a short unaccompanied piece for you. Hi, Rachel. Thanks very much for coming. And are you're going to introduce the piece for us, aren't you? I think. Thank you. Yes.
Should we do that thing where we pin her screen so we can see her bigger? Do you know what I mean? The three little dots.
Oh yes.
We can like pin it, and we'll get a better shot of Rachel. Is that? We'll speak. Do you know something?
There she is. Does that work?
Yes.
Hey. Brilliant. So there is Rachel with her glamorous assistant.
I think you can all hear Rachel, okay? Can you hear myself?
Yeah.
Yeah. So far, so good.
Cool.
Thank you. Okay. Morning, Rachel. Thanks for coming.
Hi. I'm going to be playing the first movement of a solo violin sonata by the South African composer Peter Klatzo. And what I really like about this piece is how it quickly switches between a lot of different characters, which makes it very dramatic and hopefully very entertaining to listen to. Hope you enjoy it.
Thank you very much, Rachel. Thank you. And well done for running from an academic class straight in to do that. Very impressive. Thank you very much. And you're learning the rest of the piece as well. So hopefully we'll hear that in its entirety at some point. Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. That's brilliant. Thank you. I'm glad the technology's worked out.
Yeah.
It's really brilliant. Thank you. So we're probably okay to start drawing this meeting to a close now. We've covered most things. Do any of you have any more questions which you'd like us to answer? You can type them now if you like.
Perhaps there's something about the auditions themselves,
Yeah,
making your recordings, things like that, what the interview side of things, anything along those lines.
Well, whilst you're thinking about that, I'll just tell you a little bit about the auditions. We're not looking for absolute perfection, and that might come as a great relief to you, not least because perfection is rarely found anyway, but we're after potential, really. So, you know, if you mess up a bit, that's fine. We can see beyond that, and we're looking at how we think you're going to be as a musician 2, 3 and 4 years from now. If you play some notes out of tune, it'd be quite good for us to know that you could adjust them. So we'd like to see some spontaneous tuning adjustments. And obviously, you know, it's good to see temperament. It's hard to like buy in or teach temperament. So, you know, we'd be looking for telltale signs and clues like that. But just to assure you that we're not looking for a so-called perfect, squeaky clean account of your pieces. Kath, do join in and interrupt if you'd like.
Absolutely. Never been known to refuse. Sorry, but it's just to say we're really wanting to get to sense and get a glimpse of the musician that you are, and it will be wonderful for you to find ways to be yourself with the music that you're playing. And of course, we say this often, that it's really important at this point that the music you choose to audition with is really well known. It's really in your blood. You've had chance to run it to different people, and you know, really feel that you own it and you inhabit it with as much sort of confidence and self-belief as you possibly can. Absolutely.
Jess.
Can I just say something just about after auditions?
Yeah.
Because I've experienced both parts, where one year I didn't get in and the next year I did. And even if you audition and you don't get in this time, I'd say, you know, it's either one, you can give up, or two, you can work. Use that year and use it to your advantage. Because for me, looking back, I'm so glad that I didn't get in, or I tried to go to RNCM again, because I'd be so much worse off than when I got in if I was still at that, if I was entered at that standard. And even if you do get in, you've got 9 months to basically kind of develop. If you're not confident in your playing, you've got 9 months to kind of develop self-belief and build confidence, and take everything back, go back to basics, go back to like day one of ever playing your instrument, and build and use those 9 months to build technique, to build musicality, and just build confidence in itself. Because you're never really going to get that time, and especially studying a conservatoire is hard enough, but especially if you don't believe in yourself, it's, you know, you're going to make it a lot harder for yourself. So use the time that you've got after auditions, or the year, you know, of retrying again, to just build confidence. That's the most kind of useful thing. If you don't believe in what you're doing, you know, it's going to be 1,000 times harder. So just use that time wisely, really. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, thanks for that, Jess. Yeah. And then Another part of the process is so often the interview or the speech that you're giving to the camera, because we've put some questions on the website which we'd like you to answer. And it's very helpful to us in building a complete picture of you. So don't overlook the importance of that part of the process. In fact, in life as a musician, the spoken part, the way you present yourself, and whether you speak with passion about your art, carries a lot of weight. So we like to hear about your wider interests. If you're a violinist, let's say, we're interested to hear not just about your Brahms violin sonatas, but whether you know about Brahms chamber music, Brahms songs, Brahms symphonies, what other music you're into, whether jazz or music theatre, and also some of your wider interests. Just, I mean, they're not deal breakers, but it just gives a picture of you, whether you're into your surfing, your skiing, your flower pressing, your whatever it is. So it's a good opportunity. Make the most of that part of it. There is a question on the chat which I'll just answer. Normally, what happens is people audition here, and practically at the same time as you audition, we will already start encouraging you to have some consultation lessons with some of these teachers. And if the teacher you have is part of whether you accept or not, you can get going with those consultation lessons straight away, because the audition's happening here very shortly. I think people are already submitting videos, so there's no reason why you shouldn't also have consultation lessons starting soon-ish, as soon as you've got an indication of whether you're going to have a place or not. So that's the order of events, I would say. So
could I just say something? I didn't have the chance to have any consultation lessons because I was in Italy and I just couldn't fly to the UK at the moment. But still, you know, I feel like Chris and Kath took into consideration like the type of person that I was when I auditioned, and they put me with a teacher that they thought would suit me and the level I was at and the type of musician I was. So even if you maybe can't get consultation lessons, you can still trust that you will, like, inevitably all the teachers are amazing teachers, but you can still trust that they will try to put you with a teacher that is good for you. So yeah, just that.
Thanks for that, Eleanor, because that backs up what we were saying earlier, that some students, in fact, are quite happy to leave the decision to us. And we are in the position that we know the teaching styles of all our teachers here. So, you know, we can certainly make that process easier and faster for you. I'm glad we got it right for you, Eleanor. So, so I think we'll probably leave it there.
Sorry, Chris, there's just one little tiny question on the end there, which is also, would I need to include a repertoire list with the video? It's helpful. It is helpful. We'll probably know the repertoire, but if you've chosen something that's a little bit more remote, shall we say, it's helpful for us to have that detail. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. So thanks for coming and joining us today. It's been nice to see you. I'd like to meet you here in the building at some point. Maybe that will happen in the coming months. And if you've got any questions in the meantime, do write to the RNCM. You can write to any of the email addresses, you know, info@rncm or something, and the question will eventually make its way to us, to me or to Catherine, and we'll do our best to answer you. And I hope you've appreciated hearing from students who are here today, Jess, Cameron, Eleanor, Lily and Rachel for playing. So we've tried to give you the full picture, not just from our perspective. Anyway, thanks for coming, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, really nice to see you. Thank you, and good luck with it all.